AKMoto here. So today I thought I'd bring you guys a little different of a video. Today I'm going to be comparing my 2021 YZ250F and my 2018 Yamaha YZ125. Comparing the two bikes, kind of comparing the differences and the characteristics between the two bikes. So yeah, here we're on the 250. I'm getting started just warming up the bike on this trail system here at Creekside. And right off the bat, I'll kind of let you know more of what I feel as I'm riding kind of after, because I can't really talk as I'm riding. But right off the bat, I've already taken the 125 and the 250 out for a few rides today. 250 definitely feels a little bit heavier, a little bit more planted in general. And that makes sense. The bike is physically, like, weight-wise heavier than the 125, just purely because there's more stuff to it. And there's more rotating assemblies inside of the engine, and that's going to give it a more of a heavier feel too. Just the way the bike is built in general. Now this bike is going to have a little more modern technology on it, and by that I mean slightly newer, updated suspension. The suspension's like itself is the same, but the spring rate, the valving, that kind of thing. You know, the 250 has a updated upper triple clamp. Right now I'm running it in the back position for my bar mount. I'm not sure if the lower triple clamp is the same on the 125. I think it is, but it's hard to tell. So the 250 is just a little more modern feeling of a bike overall. The great thing with this one over the 125 is it does make more power. I know a lot of people say 125 and 250 is equal, and that may have been true back when 250s were heavy and slow. But I'm going to be honest with you guys, these things nowadays, they're pretty dang good, and the 250s definitely have the power advantage, not only in the numbers, I think, but also just like the fact that you have the power right when you need it, 24/7. You just got to twist the throttle. It requires a little less finicky, you know, clutch work and whatnot over the two-stroke. The two-stroke, you definitely gotta get your throttle and clutch control down to ride those things correctly. So yeah, just cruising on the trail, I can feel definitely a little heavier of a bike, but I like the fact that it has a more planted to the ground feeling. You know, you don't really feel like you're springing around on this bike. And I'll get to that. I'll get to why I say that here once we get on the 125. But definitely more heavier, but more planted feel. Also a little easier to ride too, because the power on this bike, it's so linear, you don't really have to keep it in a certain perfect RPM like you do the 125. So it is a little bit easier to ride engine characteristic wise too. So here let's head on to the track and get an idea of how this thing feels on the track itself. We're here at Creekside MX. Alright guys, so let's head on the main track now. Let's try and see if I can put together a lap on this 250. Alright guys, so final thoughts. Yeah, final thoughts. Bike's definitely a very planted bike. The power being very linear. Pretty nice, pretty easy. competitive bike if you're looking to get into the racing aspect side of motocross. Let's go get the 125. Definitely much more flickable, much more lighter, as you guys will see here in a minute. So yeah, let's go rip. I know I'm not riding this bike as fast as I could be riding it, but still a big change getting off the 250. Still got to kind of readjust to the bike, if you will. Let's head on the trail. Getting on this little trail system they have here at Treeside. Definitely, I can tell right away, more flickable, lighter bike. You just kind of lean it over into the turn, so much easier. I mean, just look at this. Gotta like cruise on any of these turns. 125 is definitely in my opinion, a slightly better trail bike. Maybe not as much power, but more maneuverability. And I'm pretty sure I already stated this, but this bike I have done quite a few mods to, high compression head. So it doesn't run quite as, doesn't have quite as much over rev as a stock one. A little more power everywhere else. Stiffer springs. Velving stock though with the shock and the suspension. Serviced it like 30 hours ago. But yeah, just cruising on the trail, especially, you know, I can tell it's just a lot more lighter, a lot nimble, a lot more flexible. And while the 250 makes more power all throughout the RPM, this bike can get a job done, y'all. This bike's just such a fun bike to ride. You can flick it around in the air, do some little butt whips, have some fun. You know, who doesn't like the sound of a nice running two-stroke, guys? Tell me that doesn't sound nice. So here, we're gonna pull on over here to the side. Get a nice little view of the main track. Let you guys know when to take over all. So, I guess what will kind of really break these bikes down is talking about the price. Two strokes, cheaper initially, and In most cases, they will be in the long term cheaper to keep running and maintaining, or keep running and, you know, maintenance a little bit cheaper. Now when it comes to oil and air filters, you're not really going to save money with either bike, you know, but when it comes to like top ends and stuff, two-stroke can run like 125, 150 for a top end in parts, as long as your cylinder is good. And as long, well, if you have a new bike, your cylinder will probably be good if you clean an air filter every once in a while. But yeah, no, two-strokes in the long run are a lot cheaper to rebuild and maintain. A whole engine rebuild can run like 300, 500, maybe more or less, depending on what all it needs. Four-strokes would be much more because they simply have more parts. They're more complicated, and there's more stuff, you know, more mechanical moving stuff in a four-stroke to go wrong than a two-stroke. And that's one of the advantages. From a price point, a four-stroke will be a little more expensive initially, and in the long run, maybe not initially in the first year or two, but in the long run, the four-stroke will probably cost a little more, especially when you get into the realm of rebuilding motors. With that being said, two-strokes need servicing more often generally. On the four-stroke, you can generally go a little longer before you have to open the motors up. Just purely because of the nature and how they're designed, four-stroke cranks, they spend their life in, you know, soaked in oil. These two-stroke cranks live in a pretty harsh environment with gas and premix and varying speeds and all that. And yeah, so that's kind of the price aspect. A four-stroke's a little more expensive initially, and in the long run, they can be a little more to keep running, especially if you don't really do your maintenance very well. Two-stroke's definitely a little cheaper to overhaul and rebuild. Overall, the way I see it riding-wise, I think the two-strokes are so much fun. It's just a fun bike to go out there, you know, have fun and rip around on the weekends, you know. The way I see it, these 254 strokes, they're getting pretty dang good nowadays. Especially the YZ250, they're updating those things every year. Those are, you know, as competitive of a bike as you can get right now. So if you're really trying to get into the racing side of motocross, I would look more into like a 254 stroke, because again, they update those things every year and they're just more competitive. It's more often you'll see, you know, 254 stroke classes and racing events than you will see like 125 classes. Now you can still race and have a lot of fun on a 125. I've raced this bike for years. But I will say a 254 stroke is a little more competitive if you're really trying to, you know, take your racing program seriously. The way I see it, a 254 stroke, you know, great bike, most modern setup for suspension and motor, can't go wrong. 125 two-stroke, oh wow, that was sick, dude. Don't think he saw me, but he just threw a fatty over that jump. Oh, he did one right there too. Sick. But yeah, no, the 125 two-strokes, the way I see them, they're just so much fun. You know, they're fun bikes, easy to maintain, simple, not very expensive. Really, really good weekend warrior setup. They also teach you really good throttle and clutch control too. Because the thing about these bikes, you can't really ride them through the whole rev range. You got to really keep them screaming if you really want to go somewhere. Now with the mods I've done to this bike, you'll see I definitely do stick around in the lower RPM a little more. But you know, in stock form, you really got to keep these two-strokes screaming if you want to really get these things going. The 254 stroke's more of a linear power curve, you know, you can be a little more relaxed. The way I see it, the bike does more of the work. These 125s feel way more twitchier, and that's just by the nature of the bike. They're just so much lighter. The suspension tends to want to bounce off things a little more. The 250 tends to kind of tank through the bumps, I guess you could say. Don't take that too literally, but it definitely can plow through a little more than the 125 can before it kind of gets a little bumpy. So the 250, to me, it just has a more planted feel to it. The 125 is definitely a looser, kind of free-feeling bike, especially with no engine braking. You know, when you let off the gas, you're coasting as if you pulled in the clutch on a four-stroke. The four-stroke, when you let off the gas, engine brakes. As you get used to the four-stroke dirt bike, you will learn to get used to the engine braking and use it to your advantage, and that's what I've kind of done. And getting on to a two-stroke, it's a little weird because that completely cancels out all the engine braking technique you've learned. But no, yeah, these bikes are just really, really fun bikes. Definitely a little bit cheaper to maintain in the long run, especially. Cheaper initially. Of course, you do got to mix the gas, but honestly, let's be honest, you're riding a dirt bike. That's not a huge thing. When it comes to like the chassis servicing stuff, like suspension, chains, and sprockets, they're roughly the same. 125 probably won't wear on its sprockets and sliders as much, but they're roughly the same. Suspension, you know, the suspension on a 250 won't last any longer than it would on a 125, like seals and bushings wise, because they're the same thing, just different springs and damping more or less. The 250 obviously has a more updated, you know, research and development into its dampening and all, rebound and all that stuff. And I can definitely feel it when I'm out there on the 250. My 2021 soaks up bumps really well, especially when I'm being aggressive. I don't mean braking bumps, but I mean like when I'm slightly over jumping a jump, it feels like nothing. And this bike soaks up pretty well too, but again, I did have to put some aftermarket springs in there and whatnot to kind of get it going how I want it. Now the 250F isn't really physically bigger. It's like 2 inches longer, but it is also a little bit wider too. That's something I noticed. This two-stroke's pretty, you know, not very wide at the fenders. The 250 is a little wide, and it's not bad, but it's just something you got to adjust to, especially when you first get the bike. So let me know if you guys have any questions down below. I'll happily answer them. Another thing I want to mention is I think if you're like a bigger rider, I think a 250F would definitely be a little, you know, a little better. It'll carry you around a little easier than a little 125 is. If you're a smaller or lightweight rider, it doesn't really matter. You know, 125 can carry you around, 250F can carry you around just fine too. Something I wanted to mention. Now the 250 does take a little less effort to ride in my opinion, just because it does more of the work for you. I feel like, you know, they're just so much heavier and they can kind of track through the bumps a little bit better. The 125s are a little lighter, a little more twitchy, very responsive. You just got to ride them a little bit different. One isn't really better than the other. I'd highly recommend just riding them both and seeing what you like. I know Yamaha has these test demo days, I think every year, at a few of the local tracks here around Texas. So yeah, I'd recommend if you're really considering one, ride them both, see how you like them. Of course the two-stroke sounds way better. That's definitely no question. Of course I have aftermarket head, you know, aftermarket pipe on this thing, but still, brap. Who doesn't love the brap? But overall guys, my thoughts, I think the 125 is just such a fun weekend warrior bike, you know. You can still race them competitively too, but I think if you really want to take racing seriously, the 250F, a new 250F is the way to go. I'm not really talking about used bikes here. I'm more talking about new bikes, if that makes any sense. Like the 125, you can buy a used one and rebuild it, and it'll be almost as good as the one I'm sitting on right now, if you get everything dialed in. These 125s, not a lot has changed on them. But yeah, overall, I think the 125, again, I know I sound like a broken record here, but really fun weekend warrior, just going out to have fun, fly around, hit some berms, you know, really fun bike overall. The 250 definitely is a more up-to-date, modern, competitive bike. So if you want the best of the best, you know, you're going to spend a little more money, but you're going to get slightly newer technology in the 250s. And if you're going to be racing, taking your racing program a little more seriously, a 250F I think is the way to go. But yeah, I'm going to keep cruising around. Hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Again, like I said earlier, please comment if you guys have any or any general questions about each bike. I'll happily answer them. And yeah, please subscribe so you guys don't miss any upcoming videos. I'm gonna go shred around for a little while. I'll see you guys in the next one. Oh, and I don't think I've talked about the ergonomics of the bike, but the 125 definitely has a more lighter, twitchier feeling to it. You can throw it in the corners a little more. The bars with the clamps set up, they're a little bit different too, but you can get them set up pretty close. But yeah, hope you guys have enjoyed the video. See you guys in the next one. Deuces.